Welcome back to yet another fun-filled episode of your PlayStation education. Today we're going to be talking about something very, very near and dear to my heart, the idea of the state of the Japanese game industry. Now, as we all know, gaming as we've come to embrace it pretty much started in Japan. Now, of course, there are some of you out there who are far older than us.
Far older.
Maybe you remember things like the Atari and the Commodore 64 and things like that. That was well before our time. Those stopped being popular before I was even born. So
Those stopped being cool before they were even cool.
So if that is your background, then yes, obviously you started with the Western interpretation of gaming. But for us, we started on the NES. That was very much the Japanese interpretation of gaming. Now, Japanese not only dominated the systems that we played games on, NES, Sega, the Genesis was such a good system, 64, PlayStation 1, 2, 3. Japan really has dominated the hardware section for us of gaming. And software side, they did that too for a long time. Back in the NES days, it's hard for me to pinpoint my favorite NES games and memories, but some of the highlights definitely include things like Super Mario Bros. 3.
Definitely.
Great game. And so, on the software side, Japan used to dominate. You think about the 64. What's the first game that comes to mind? Ocarina of Time, Japanese, and you think of the Super Nintendo, Mario Kart or Super Mario World, Japanese, and PlayStation 1. We talked about Final Fantasy, Japanese. PlayStation 2, Kingdom Hearts, Japanese. Now we fast forward to the present. Almost all my favorite games. In fact, if you look at the docket for PlayStation education, the games I'm having you play, because I want you to experience the ecosystem of the new PlayStation 3, none of them made in Japan. We have Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. We have The Last of Us. We have Infamous 1 and 2. And we have The Unfinished Swan and Journey. All of those games were created by Western developers. Oh, yeah, I want to say American. There might be some Canadians in there. I think Genova Chen is Canadian. I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize if you're not Canadian.
We got this game, and we think you'll like it.
It's a pretty good game, but there's no guns in it, because Canada know that,
So, all right, we'll take credit for it, and you can be our silent partner. Just stop talking. Okay, I'll just go back to playing some hockey.
Oh, so
I don't want to make the Canadians seem like pansies or something.
We will go to that one. When I think about Japanese games this generation that I got really attached to, Valkyria Chronicles. In fact, I might add that one to the docket if we have time. That's another great part of the PlayStation ecosystem. That's probably the only Japanese game that really tops the, oh my gosh, this is such a integral part of the PlayStation 3 ecosystem this generation for me. So, and even my limited experiences with the 360, you got your Call of Duties, you got your Halos. We talked about Halo's a great game, great series, all Western made. Alan Wake, Gears of War, all Western made. Forza, Western made.
We're slowly taking back the gaming world. America!
So that kind of blows my mind. Even when I think about the cross-platform games that I really enjoyed, like the Mass Effect games, really love those. They're Canadian. That's still Western. Still Western games. What happened to the Japanese gaming industry? They're still making games, but why this generation are they not coming out and singing to it? I think the last Japanese-made game that really captured me was Ni no Kuni. That's another great game. But to think in 7 years of this PlayStation 3 ecosystem, only 2 Japanese games have topped my list of oh my gosh, this is such a great games. And I wonder why that is. I'm very curious. So what exactly happened? Like, how do we get to this point?
Well, I honestly I don't know for sure, but my take on it would probably be the sense that they're kind of at a standstill in the sense like there's Final Fantasy, like, if you actually counted them instead of like 10 and a half, whatever, it's like Final Fantasy 27. So I mean, they continue the same thing, and since Xbox and PlayStation started going, they started bringing in different games and more games, and people started trying new things.
Yes.
And they started to get hooked on different type of games because first-person shooter and shoot 'em up games became uber popular.
Yes. Overnight. If you
exactly.
PlayStation 2, can you name a single first-person shooter franchise that defined those generations?
Oh.
None. Time Splitters might be the only one I remember playing from that generation. Like, and of course, Halo 1 and 2, but PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, first-person shooters, not really a thing.
Exactly. So I think that since it became so popular, that's not the core of the Japanese gaming. But that's not what they use. Yes. So I think that has a big part of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that brings us to the next question. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for the industry? A couple generations ago, Brazil wasn't even a market in the gaming industry. South America wasn't even a market. Eastern Europe wasn't a market a couple generations ago. And now they're slowly coming into the fold. Do you think this switch from east to west, do you think that's going to bring in more customers like that, or do you think it's going to isolate them more?
Well, it seems for the Western type of games, they seem to be very popular with people. Mm-hmm. I say it's a good thing, but if we completely lose the Eastern, like the way they make games and everything, I think it's a bad thing, especially since that's what we grew up on, and that's the kind of games that we like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm sure I would love to hear Jared's perspective on this, because of course he's the Wii guy in our family.
Yes.
So you have to think he's coming from the exact opposite perspective. He probably hasn't played a single Western game on that poor Wii. Western people not making a lot of games on that Wii. Not a lot of people at all make games on Wii, but the people that are definitely Japanese. Especially when you talk about the best games on the Wii.
Mario.
So so here's a question then. If just on a very superficial level, if you were to make that distinction between what the 360 or the HD twins they call them, 360 and PS3 versus the Wii, it's that HD kind of stuff. Obviously using more expensive engines, more complex engines. A lot of them running on similar technology. Whether it's the Unreal Engine or whatever iteration of id Tech they have out now. Do you think Japanese developers just haven't been able to figure out those tools? They're still working with older tool sets, trying to build these games. That's why they kind of gravitate more towards the Wii.
I mean, that could very well be it. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I kind of feel like they would try to, upgrade everything to make the next and best thing, especially since companies are so competitive that they usually push aside the things we like the most to try to upgrade everything, to keep in the running with everyone else.
Well, there's some that obviously know how to use technology really well. Square Enix stands out. Final Fantasy 13, not my favorite Final Fantasy, but it still holds up pretty well, graphics-wise. It looks fan-freaking-tastic. Of course, it took them like half a decade to make.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
It took them forever. And then Final Fantasy 13-2, Final Fantasy 13-3. I'm still waiting on that Final Fantasy 15. I think that's when I'll jump back on the bandwagon. That actually looked pretty cool. You remember that trailer? So hopefully they got a grasp on the technology. So they out of everyone, they seem to have the grasp on the technology side, the Eastern Front. I guess we'll know this fall when the Wii U, HD Wii U games start coming out. Right now there hasn't been a single major HD release. I'm not counting Super Mario Brothers Wii U. I'm sorry, that's just a high-res version of the game you put out last year.
Yeah, really.
It's a good game. That's not quite pushing the graphical envelope any.
Not even sort of.
So at the end of this year, probably more likely next year, we'll start to see how Nintendo has been able to grasp with the HD era. I'm very curious.
Oh, same.
So I wonder if it. So right now we're at stagnation. You think is something that's holding them back? Western developers, even in great ones like Naughty Dog, we talked about every generation. They've completely changed engines, completely changed game series, completely changed even types. They went from platformers to open world games to adventure style games. So I'm very curious going to this next generation how the Japanese companies are going to deal with it.
I'm hoping it's something big and good because, as you said, our roots are Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
So I really want to see the Wii do good.
Yeah.
But out of all the systems we've ever owned through Nintendo, Wii's probably my least favorite.
Yeah.
Stack it against the 64. I mean, 64's got to beat.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So the most played The most loved games on the Wii U are the ones in the Virtual Console. Here's the hoping. Here's the hoping. And again, I don't want any system to do bad. Like I said, we've hitched our cart to the PS4 going into this next generation. But if the PS4 were to dominate the way the PS2 did, then the PS5 will suck the way the PS3 sucked its first 2 or 3 years. I don't want that to happen. I want there to be competition. I want all of them to do well. If for nothing else, then to make sure that the horse that I've been hitched to has to try harder to keep me there. So, Andy, anything else you want to add here at the end?
Just keep buying games, playing games.
Okay,
don't let the gaming party stop.
There you go. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. So this has been another PlayStation Education. Again, record your response videos. Very curious, Josiah, all these great Japanese memories, he's now experiencing secondhand. You know, he's experiencing these great Japanese titles a decade after they came out, rather than at the moment like we did. I'm very curious what he has to say, very curious what Jen has to say. So please do your response videos, and join us next time. Keep your thinking caps at the ready. Get your little memo pads, your little sticky notes, and your little gel pens ready, and prepare to have your mind once again expanded.
But not quite blown.
But not quite. Well, not just yet.
Not just. We're saving that. We're saving that.
We're saving that for 2 drinks in. Coming soon. All right. Love you. Bye-bye.
Can't even wink.